Welcome back to the Aussie Boomer channel. And as you can see by the intro slide, I'm going to tell you a little story about what it was like to start school in 1956 in suburban Australia. Now, I was actually only 4 years old when I went to school, and you were supposed to be 5. But first of all, I could just set the scene as it is in Australia in those years, as children just were hanging around the house. There was no preschool, there was no play groups, there was no kindergarten, there was no childcare centres, there was nobody looking for a job as a babysitter, even if anybody had money to pay for it, which they didn't. And so kids just basically played around with the other kids in the neighbourhood until they passed their 5th birthday. And then mothers, always mothers, fathers never really got into this child-minding thing too much, took the child off to school and said, here's my son, he's had his 5th birthday and I'd like to enrol him in the school. And they just say, okay, that'll be fine. No need to have a birth certificate or anything like that. Now, my birthday is actually at the end of March, and that would have meant that in 1956 I was ineligible to start school because I hadn't turned 5. Never mind, my mother backdated my birthday to the 4th of December the previous year, so thereby meaning that I've actually passed my 5th birthday by the time the 20th of January came around, which was the cut-off point to enrol children in grade 1. No preschool, no anything like that. You just started primary school in grade 1 at 5 years old. Now, don't think badly of my mother for telling a fib when it came time to enrol me into school, because as it was, they'd struggled a lot and they just trying to make ends meet. They'd bought into what was called a general business, a mixed business, which is a corner store. Now, there's no supermarkets and there's no self-service shops, there's no convenience stores. All there was little family-run corner stores and mixed businesses around in the suburbs. So my parents bought into one of those. Now, because it wasn't a self-service kind of a shop, people walked in with their little list of groceries, handed that over to the person behind the counter. The person behind the counter took that and ran off, and then they would slice up the sausage meat or whatever and put that onto the scale and weigh it up. They would wrap up the eggs in bits of newspaper so that they didn't break. There was no packaged eggs and things. So to run a mixed business in Australia in those years was a very labour intensive job for the people running the store. So given that it was a 2-person full-time, more than full-time job for my mother and father, and mum stuck with this guy who's pretty close to 5 but doesn't qualify to go to school, she just backdated the date, sent me off to school. So, okay, everybody thought that was okay. There was no need to sort of prove anything. What the mother said was job done. Took one look at the kid and said, oh yeah, he'll be fine. So there I was, trotted off to school. I got taken on the very first day. There was an old bus, and that would running up to the school, but it wouldn't actually stop at the school. It was just doing its normal bus route, which happened to stop at the end of the street near the school. It wasn't a school bus, just a normal suburban bus. But here's a picture of the bus that I went on, and we thought we were pretty damn lucky that we had a bus to take us there, because the only alternative then was to walk. Folks didn't have a car. And my mother walked me across the road on that very first day of me going off to school, and I was very self-conscious, and went with me on the bus over to the school. We got off the bus, and as we were walking down toward the thing, my mother told me this story later on. She said that when we got within sight of the school and I saw all these other children running around and playing and all sort of looking up to see who the next new arrival was, I just said to my mother, it's okay, You don't have to come in. I got this. You can go home now. See ya. And I trotted off ahead and walked in the gate, and I was at school. And the thing that I'd feared the most was that my mother was going to kiss me goodbye, and all the other students were going to see it, the new babies in school, and they were all going to rubbish me for being kissed by my mother. 1950s macho Aussie Anzac little boy. So there I was. So school was interesting. We sat at little desks. We had the slate and the slate pencil to write things with, and teaching us how to form letters and all that normal stuff. We had no shoes. I didn't have shoes until I was in high school. We just went along, a t-shirt, a pair of shorts. That was it for all of my years in primary school. Nobody had any shoes on. Nobody thought anything of it. It was just the normal thing. That's what it was. So one thing that does sort of strike me as a little bit sort of comical when speaking about school is in later years in school, in the high school, when some kids are sometimes being a bit inattentive. And nowadays they call it ADD. He's got attention deficit disorder, poor little kiddie. What a shame. But when I was in school, they had a really good way of dealing with ADD, was that if the teacher was speaking to the class and saw somebody drifting off, not paying attention, looking out the window, whatever, he would quietly walk up to that child and slam his hand forcefully down on the desk right in front of the child's face, get right in the face of the child and say, "Pay attention!" And that fixed the problem. Not only for the kid in question, but when you looked around, there was a whole classroom full of kids all paying attention. We didn't have any ADD, nobody needed any meds. So there you go. That's my little talk about starting school in 1956, 4 years old. Hope you enjoyed the story. Look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye-bye.